It's become such that if I say to them, it's blue, they take it. If they say to me, it's green, I don't question it. It's what it is, okay? But that thing has been built over years. And I mean, I can go into examples, it's not so necessary, but I've been through pain. Yeah, there are days when I come back, I lie down in my bed, and I weep. Tears literally just go down my eyes from what I've experienced in the day. But I've been fortunate. I've been surrounded by love. I have a really beautiful wife and children and family. And on those days, they make it easy. That's all I can say.
Hello, sir. Sorry, I think we missed that. The one that was sent by Dr. Komolafe.
I thought I answered about the online, the structure. Is that it?
Yes, imperatives and a very pragmatic approach.
Well, yeah, what I was trying to say to that was that you have to be aware. That's really what I was saying. You don't wake up in the morning and decide it. You have to build this thing over time. And that maybe the beauty of my discussion here is that I've sensitized young people to building their lives in this way. And that what I've told you, you don't go to school and learn it. Okay, it's not something any teacher or any professor or anybody is going to sit you down and teach you. Okay, if you're lucky, you're in a community like this. Okay, and somebody may take interest in your career and help you along by teaching you these things if they know them. My luck was that I was made aware of these things at a very early age. Okay, and so I made a conscious choice to live my life in this manner, where I try my best all the time to represent to anybody that I'm dealing with exactly what it is. And I say it to my staff and my team, you can't rob me, you can only rob yourself. Okay, in the long run, you will only rob yourself. And that if you're transparent and straightforward, in spite of the cost of it, somehow you will rise. Somehow. Somehow. That's all. That's really what I was saying. But there's no school for it.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together once again for Dr. Ndili. Thank you very much, sir. Hello. Are we having a good time? Good time or great time? Good time. Okay, our second facilitator is here. It's the person of Dr. Linus Mba. If you ask him, Dr. Linus Mba, Dr. Mba, who are you? All he simply tell you is I'm a farmer. Dr. Linus Mba is the director of Rainmart Africa Limited. Rainmart is a leading agricultural company made in the tropics of Mexico with over a decade's presence in the Nigerian market. They have a veritable one-stop shop. They are a veritable one-stop shop to build and operate all kinds of agricultural products. Rainmart provides comprehensive and holistic solutions to every project they embark upon. And that includes, but not limited to, planning, finance facilitation, establishment, and operation. They also bring to every project a vast local experience together with advanced agricultural know-how. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we stand and welcome Dr. Linus Mba. Thank you very much.
have a voice that can also work. I think it's working. Okay. Yes, good morning to you all. It sounded like an advertisement for Dr. Linus Mba or for Rainmat Africa. But that is not my understanding of my being here today. Yes, I like to say I'm a farmer. But I think it's better to say that I earn a living out of agriculture. And what I want to spend the next 1 hour or thereabout doing with all of us is to see if I can manage to reawaken an interest in modern agriculture. Okay, not agriculture as we know it, or that agriculture that instills some fear in us and makes us feel that it's something that is left to the elders in the rural areas. Okay, and then it shuts our eyes to the realities. So thank you for having me here. It's like I said, it's not about me. It's not about my capacity. I do have quite a lot, thanks to God, okay? But it's about an interaction between us. Because I am one of those people that believe that we must engage each other to really reignite or reconnect to the potentials that lie in us in our past. And I believe that agriculture is an excellent way and is an excellent area to start with. It's not the only one. I listened to the speaker before me very interestingly. So I think we can be seated. I don't know what the process is. It doesn't look like a farm here. So there's no point standing, and acting as if we are trying to look at some plants or some animals. I don't want to make it, like I said, it's not a lecture, it's an interactive section, okay? Take me as your Man Friday for agriculture. And bounce your questions at me whenever you please, okay? Whenever you choose, all right? Please, let's interact and see whether we can ignite, whether we can start it once again. I would like to start by just asking a few questions. And then I'll listen to your answers, and I'll try to pull together. I'll summarize. I'm not going to go into the issues as you raise them because there is something I want to get at through the questions I'm asking and the response I'll get from you. Okay. My first question is anybody here involved in any form of the agricultural value chain? Leave the big grammar, okay, about agricultural value chain. It's just everything around agriculture, from the farming aspect, from the planning to the farming to the harvesting to the marketing, to the processing, whatever. This is what we always call, what is called the agricultural value chain. Is anybody here involved in this process anyhow? Okay, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the back, 6, 7, 8, 9. I wish it could get to 10. But that's good enough. Okay, so that's the first question. As some of us were growing up, were our parents involved in any form of this process? Okay, getting better. That gives me almost, without counting now, it gives me like quite over half of the people that are here. were some of us involved in that process that our parents were engineering? Leave my grammar again. Our parents were the driving force of whatever activity that was connected to agriculture. Were some of us, as little children or as teenagers, were some of us involved in this process? Okay. Can somebody, just 3 people, I don't care how we choose who the 3 people are. Could 3 people just tell us how they were involved in the process, not the parents? What did you do? What was it that you did in that process? Just 3. I think probably balance it out in the crowd, so we don't have all the questions on one side of.
Okay, praise God. As a growing-up child, I think in my primary 1, I was in green class, so we had to do agriculture. And from there, they'll keep this small cup for you to plant beans. So we started planting beans. So from there, they told us we can take it to our home to go and plant. The interest are coming on or coming in. And my house is a large home. So my father makes sure that the food we eat is being grown, but not by us. But we have a portion in the back of our house. So he allowed us to plant. So that's where it came from. So there's this excitement whereby I'll plant beans and I can rip beans, you understand, in a large quantity. So I get so excited. Then time goes on. After leaving the sector I was working for, I actually thought that I can do better in agriculture. That's when I ventured into agriculture, like big time now. Praise God.
Okay, thank you.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Actually, my dad was a full-time farmer. We stayed in government farm settlement area. So, I grew up knowing agriculture fully, both the livestock and the planting. So, when growing up, I'm used to it. When I say I'm used to it, it's something I wake up with every day. There's always something to plant. There's always a place to clear. There's always an animal to take care of. But as I grew up, I lose interest in it because the way my dad was doing it is actually not the best way. They have to hire people to do it instead of getting machineries. They have to take the animals. They have to use their hands in packing, all those stuffs. Even the poultry, the way they do their beds, they have to be the ones to do it by themselves and not using machineries. And so those things really turned me off from agriculture, and I felt, can I go through all this stress just to make little money? Because then, even growing up, I realized what we made out of it is not as the stress. We go into processes to process cassava, to make this. We realize it's something small we make out of it, so I'm like, no, I don't think I can do this anymore. But with recent developments, I think I'm picking a little interest in it.
That's good. Better than nothing. The interest, at least, is coming up again.
All right, praise God.
Hallelujah.
My name is Godwin. Personally, I want to say that, first off, I'm a village boy, and I grew up in the village with my both parents, and my interest of agriculture started from there. I've always been involved in the clearing, to the planting. Back then, even from primary school down to secondary school, I'll come back from school. Sometimes I have to join my mom in the farm, or she would have to wait for me, then we'll go together. So all through the process, I would say I've always been involved, from the clearing to the planting to the processing. And I'm not sure I've ever lost interest, because coming over here, and even in the higher institution where I stayed, I had a space where I planted my crops, and it was to the benefit of everybody, vegetables and all of that. So that has really been my experience so far. Just that for a little while I stopped because of I moved from where I stayed, and I no longer had access to where I could plant. But if you talk of the interest, even till now, if I have where to start my agricultural process, of course, I would gladly be in the process.
Okay.
Praise the Lord. My name is Peace Ibiam. When I was growing up like as a child, my daddy works in a farm settlement where they have pigs. So, and my daddy do palm oil. We go to farm. We clear, we weed, we do many things in agriculture that we plant. I can plant corn. I can do many things in agriculture. Then, because of let me say, because of coming to Lagos and because of the hard thing, like not being able to, the sun, the rain beating you when you are doing all the things, I think it's very hard for me to do agriculture. But later on, I saw the importance of it, whereby I put more interest in it because vegetables and everything, you make them, you sell them, you produce them to make money. And I started finding interest in agriculture. Although I'm not in the village, but anytime I go down there, I still have opportunity to do some farming work. Praise the Lord.
Okay, the last one.
Praise the Lord. I just wanted to add to it because mine is different. Okay. It's fishing.
Okay.
And it's not a pond kind of fishing. My father used to fish.
Okay.
So as a little girl, we join him in the boat as he goes to do. And we discovered that it's different kinds of fishing for different kinds of people. My father used to do the type that, at the time he goes to drop the nets, we go back, and the next time we go and catch them in. So that gave one the idea, at least growing up, I could know at a particular time, if you go fishing, you might not catch some because it gave some experience. At a particular time, because so our going there could be 12 midnight. They wake us up, go, it's because of the tide. We were using the tide at that time. So it didn't come to be mechanized or kind of fishing, but as a little girl, I know people will have to join him. Someone is paddling, someone is even bailing the water out of the boat. He is dropping the nets and all of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If I try, thank you for the interaction, for giving us a feedback and honest feedback, because that's what we require. If I try to pull together what we have said, okay, some of us there's always a complaint somewhere, about the method. They did it in the past. We were not so excited about the way they did it, the labor intensiveness of agriculture, the unpredictability, the time-consuming part of it. It wasn't mechanized, okay? The land that now that we're in Lagos, we have difficulty finding land. Or we relocated and it becomes a problem, okay? These are all part of the challenges that you find in agriculture. But I tell you, there is no business that we get into that doesn't have its challenges. One of the problems that agriculture has in our country today with all of us, I'm not talking about government or anything, I'm talking about us. One of the problems that agriculture has is that in our mindset, we have banished it to the garden in the backyard. We have not moved it further. We have also, if I pull together, we're talking about production. That is the actual farming, okay, in different forms. Whether we're farming crops or we're doing tree cropping or we're involved in fish farming, okay? We're talking about production. Let me use myself as an example. As a little boy, I sold groundnuts, what some people call peanuts. Okay? this is sales and marketing. Granted, I didn't do it for a long time. I was opportuned that my parents laid their priorities differently and took me out of it. But virtually everybody in my family sold one thing or the other. Now, the interesting part of this, talking about me still, is that I recollect that my father, who was a civil servant and who didn't earn quite an income, but modest enough, always invested in my mother's business. My mother was involved in the business of agriculture, at the marketing end, okay? Because just like most of you that are here, we lived in the city. So we didn't have that much land at our disposal to practice agriculture at a scale that it will become viable as a business. But clearly, my mother, like most mothers, was smart enough to understand that agriculture did not stop at the production end. But there was the other end too. And since there were products already there, why doesn't she key in? And she keyed into that and pulled her children into that business as much as it could go. Now, I tell you what my problem with what happened, and with most of my peers who had a similar upbringing, they all passed through something similar. My problem, and I believe most of you would share this, my problem was that what my mother always preached is what I've heard already here in this assembly. My mother said, the reason why I send you to school is for you not to go through what I am going through right now with you. And for me, unfortunately, that's where the break came. See, I'm educated in Europe, well educated, thanks to God. Okay, I practiced in Europe. So, if my mother, now coming from Europe and having practiced in Europe, if my mother had changed her narrative, and if we change our narrative, that's where the change begins to come. My mother's narrative would have been, you see, there is money in this business, but it's also backbreaking. I want you to go to school so you can take it to the next level. This is where the break came. This is where the disconnect came. The disconnect is a generational thing. You see, when you read about companies that you call family companies that come from a long tradition, 100 years, 150, 200, they are passed down and handed down in practice, in effort, always improving, always refining the process, learning from the mistakes, getting it better, but sticking to the value that is trapped in it. Why did my father invest his money in my mother's business if it wasn't lucrative enough? If it wasn't more lucrative than my father's business, why wasn't it the other way around? My father would take the little money he was making and invest in my mother, and my mother will multiply it. So why could my mother not conserve the narrative that there is money, there is value, relative, everything is relative. There is no absolute. Why didn't she appreciate that there was more value and greater value in what she did compared to what my father, but both of them were a part of a system, synergy, okay? One is the investment. You see, when they tell the story of growth in economics, many of us wonder, what do you call growth? It all sounds big and bogus. But you see, a simple decision in somebody's life that I want to go and build a small room This decision leads to an investment. Okay? The day you put down some little money, no matter how little that money is, to build that place, then suddenly you need a bricklayer. Okay? You need a carpenter. You need this, you need that. You need somebody who's going to plaster. You need an electrician, okay, if you're lucky enough. In other words, the investment leads to growth. What I'm talking about is already growth. You see, that the singular decision that I am going to, or I have a little capacity to build for myself something little, and I put down some money, triggers a growth, because immediately there are many more actors in the process that come into the process, and that is what you call growth. Break it down in simple economics. Now, we did not grow that system. And because we didn't grow it, we find ourselves where we find ourselves today, complaining. I heard the honorable speaker before me talk about that. It's not just a youth thing. The complaint syndrome is not a youth thing. If you have encountered a Lebanese in this country or an Indian, then you understand that it's the mindset that does the magic. Because many of them come with a nylon bag, what some of us call polyethylene bags. And before the end of the year, I'm not justifying whatever people do, okay? But before the end of the year, there's a suitcase. Let's keep it at that level. Let me not say they have been able to build a house. But somebody who started, now where you see the darkness is where they see light. Where you see failures is where they see opportunities. And my mother saw those opportunities. She did not go to Harvard or Yale, but she knew and she saw that in the city where she lived, she couldn't farm, but she could be involved in the process. And she will be involved in the marketing end of the process. She looked for hands, and she put her children into it without necessarily abusing them. That's why I became who I became. Because if she had abused me in that process, I wouldn't be who I am today. So somehow, she managed the process, just that the narrative broke down. And we need to reconnect to that narrative. Now, you see, the golden era of agriculture in this country, okay? It's good for us to remind ourselves. You know, I talked about my parents now. When I came back to Nigeria in 2007, I lived in Europe for over 23 years. So when I came back to the country, I was involved in politics, but not mainstream politics. I was a technocrat at the background. I was involved in writing policy, agenda, okay, for people who wanted to run at an election. And I was privileged to work with a man who had a very hands-on understanding of issues, who at the time was the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And there was one woman that we predicated at elections, okay? First, I tell you the anecdotes before we go into. There was a woman we tried to build the campaign around. This woman did one thing, go back to production. I spoke about my mother at the marketing end. She was in the production and marketing. She was running the whole process from beginning to the end. You know what she did? Many of us do that, or we did it at some point. She had a small plot of land in the city of Owerri. I'm not from Owerri. She had a small plot of land which was leased out to her. She just went to the owners of the land and said, look, you're not doing anything with this land. Can I please use it? And the people were magnanimous enough to oblige her because she had children. And she used that plot of land in the city to do greens. You know what greens are? Green vegetables. Efo or something like that. She was doing greens, dry season greens. So, you see, by choosing to do dry season greens, she comes into a niche in the production cycle, okay? Because she knows that during dry season, vegetables are scarce. And if she farms her vegetables, she will get more money from the vegetables. And that's, she had, the water source was around there. Somebody had a borehole and they let her use the borehole. So she would water with her children. I tell you, this woman was able to train most of her children through secondary school, university on these greens I'm talking about now, dry season greens. This is, again, another story. If you go to the bigger stories, now, some of the reasons why we tell big stories. If you watch what they call pret-a-porter, that is the walkway, okay? Leave the morals of it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the idea, the business. The walkway. You know, fashion industry, when people are showing what they have through the walkway. The basic idea there is not that they don't sell most of those things you see. They show capacity. They just show you what is possible. Okay? They don't produce for the walkway the things that you and I wear, but they show you capacity. So when we tell big stories, we don't tell big stories ignoring the fact that there are different realities in life, but we tell it as a motivation to know what is possible. Okay? Now, this country, through activities of people, not activities necessarily of government, was able to develop the so-called groundnut pyramids of Kano. People from Anambra State, the Nnamdi Azikiwes of this world, and some people who were trained abroad far back then were trained at the back of palm oil trading by their mothers. It was their mothers far back then that would trade in palm oil by simply taking advantage of the seasons in the market. You know, buy when the prices are low, store, and when the prices go up. This is what they call share market, stock market today. Okay? Buy when it's low, sell when it's high. They did it. Okay? Ojus Okalo that you hear today in quote. The mother, who is at the time was enigmatic of trading on palm oil. Not the palm oil that the Okomus of this world do today, or the Prescos do today in larger quantities. Smaller scales, but being smart about it. Okay? So we know the groundnut pyramids. We know about the palm oil drastically. I don't want to bore you with all this. Now, let's go to today agriculture. Still talking big. All of us hear about otter farms. Leave the morality of it. That's not what I'm here to do. For that, you have pastor. Okay. Pastor teaches you more than that. That I'm sure about, because I've listened to him. Brilliant. You see, most of us hear about otter farms, but we don't know much about these places. So we tell our legends about them. Sometimes exaggerated, sometimes underestimated. Otter farms formerly makes $1 million a day. That farm, called Otter Farms, makes $1 million every day off the back of poultry. Yes. Justice of Adamawa, who at some point became, not Justice Nyako, General Nyako, who became the governor, okay? He has an integrated farm in Adamawa, which is anchored on tree cropping. I've talked about livestock, in this case, poultry. He has a mango plantation, which is a free trade zone. A free trade zone means it's not considered to be the Nigerian territory because you don't pay customs duties there. Okay? He has 50,000 mango trees. And he makes declared figures. The mango plantation makes 4 billion naira in net profit annually. The whole mangoes are exported. Only a certain percentage, below 1% of it, is sold locally. Okay? That's Nyako. I spoke about Okomu Farms in Edo State. Now, this is interesting. It's interesting because we hear the story time and again that the Malaysian oil, to some extent, is true. It's not totally true the way the story is told, but to some extent, it's true. Because there was a cooperation between what you call the Palm Research Institute, NIFO, in Nigeria, okay? And they had some seedlings that they were working on, and the Malaysian Research Institute came and took a seedling from us. But the interesting thing is, Okomu belongs to a man from Belgium. And Okomu plantation is in Edo State, around Okada, if you're going to Lagos, from Bini, on the Bini Expressway. If you go to the plantation and you want $2 million, $5 million, they will take it from their vault and give you. Every day. I'm talking about daily. If you want $2 million, the Belgian will take $2 million from the vault and give you. That's the capacity. If you stay there, you will see stainless steel tanks rolling out of the factory, headed to One to ship out Nigerian palm oil. Being made in Nigeria, but interestingly masterminded by Belgium. Like the story of the Lebanese, okay? Who comes here and sees our failures as strengths and sees our complaints as market opportunities. This is what is Belgian. There's another company called Presco. It's also an oil plantation company, also in Edo State. They have similar magic. But recently, a couple of Nigerians are also getting involved. In the same Edo State, there's a greenhouse farms. I don't know if many, now, for the young person who said, I didn't really like what, I found it off-putting, the method that agriculture is practiced. In Edo State, on the Bini bypass, okay, from the beginning of the Bini bypass, not up to 1 kilometer on the Bini bypass, you're going to see some things that look like white canvas, in case anybody is from Edo State or from that area. It looks like white canvas. It's like magic. They are greenhouses. They are the best greenhouses you can find in this country. Developed on 30 hectares. 30 hectares. That project broke even after 1.5 years. 18 months. It paid back the investment. That project, they invested $30 million. Please don't scream and say, $13 million, who has it? That's not how I started my story. I didn't start it with $13 million, okay? We're talking about the different parts of it. Let me take you now. You see, in the projects that I named to you are projects I'm involved in. I'm not telling you as a doctor, as a teacher, or anything. I'm a practitioner. I'm involved in these projects. I'm involved either with Israelis or with Mexicans or with Belgians or whatever the case may be, okay? Directly involved in these projects. I was the pioneer managing director of the greenhouse farms I'm telling you about, okay? Now, you see, the magic of greenhouse, and there are different scales of greenhouse, so we don't have to actualize a greenhouse with $13 million. We can also do greenhouse for $500,000 or less, okay? But the simple magic of a greenhouse is that it helps these young people who don't want to do something that is back-breaking. You can wear a suit and work in a greenhouse farms if you love suits. If you love natives, you can wear your senator native and work in a greenhouse farms. But it is technology-based. They call it precision agriculture. The speaker before me said something about technology in agriculture. Okay? Now, let me try to see how I can help us. apart from just telling the big stories. You see here, if we want to really tap into the potential in that agricultural value chain, in that whole process, okay? And I really encourage us, and I will tell you why. If we want to tap into that value chain, we must banish the thought in our mindset that agriculture is a backyard business, or it is something that you do in your garden, in the small garden you do. I'm not saying you can't do that. You can be a hobby farmer, and you can do that and farm your vegetables in your backyard. It has a lot of value when you do such. But we're talking about now agriculture as a business. We have to banish that thought that is something that is done and understand why actually is it that we have a faculty of agriculture in most of our higher institutions. We even have colleges of agriculture. And today we have universities of agriculture. Will it just be a backyard thing and then you build a whole university around agriculture? In the countries of my sojourn, they made and they continue to make a fortune off the back of agriculture. Why? Because they have come to understand and accept that it is a science, but not complex. It's not complex science that you need to go to Harvard or Yale. Because if it were, our parents would not have got involved. All the things that you learn in school, like crop rotation, if you read Things Fall Apart, where somebody came and said, how come that I do all this, I do all the sacrifices to the gods and the rest of it, and at the end of the day, I still get miserable harvest. And the good native doctor in that distance says, you're a lazy bone. See all your friends. When they farm here, they understand that if you farm there again, what you're going to get out of the soil will be less. And as you continue to farm it, you continue to destroy, deplete whatever, and therefore your output will be less. So why don't you just get out of your, roll off your sleeves and do like the other ones and move. If you farm here once, these were things that we did not invent. Our parents practiced it, which means somehow they understood the science. I heard the word about poultry. Now, let me tell you some things that we don't understand that makes it very difficult for us to make a living out of it. You see, if you want to set up a poultry farm, or small poultry, doesn't matter, okay? Each person to their strength. If you know your capacity, please don't go beyond your capacity because it will break you. Agriculture is one thing that breaks you very quickly. So if you know that, don't let it break you. You want to do poultry. You have to understand, first of all, that those things that you put in the cages are living beings. You see all those birds you buy and put there, that one day you collect them again, you put a knife in their throat and the rest of it. They are human, they are living things. So they need air just like all of us need air too. Now, you go and set up a small building or a small whatever and put some birds. You don't know that there is what they call wind flow, wind movement. You set that small thing against the wind flow. You've destroyed that business from the beginning. Why? Because you need to set the windows. I'm not talking about big farms, I'm talking about any little thing we're doing. You need to do your window in the direction of the wind for the wind to be able to enter. If you don't do that, your birds will start dying very quickly because of heat. Or you start investing in things like energy and it depletes your resources, the money you've invested into the business. Because if you put a fan inside the place, many of us, we don't work numbers when we are doing agriculture because it's garden business. All we know is that we put in something, at the end of the day, we have eggs and we go to the market, we're happy, enjoying, celebrating. Meanwhile, it's a lost transaction. You do it 3 times, you run away because you can't see the money again. Why can't you see the money? Because you lost the money. If you don't want to lose the money, there is something like aeration. It's called aeration, wind movement. That's where we need the support of, for example, if we have to build a synergy, okay, that some of us want to do something like that. The church, our church, should take the lead and provide a framework extension service, which is not expensive, and get people trained. We can help in training. Now, what these people simply do is, if any of us wants to do poultry, we go to their place and knock and say, I want to do poultry. Can you send me one of the people to come and help me determine the wind flow, wind direction, so that I know how to face my building? You know, just as simple as face my building begins to create a little magic into what we're doing. That's one. Second thing, still poultry. Many of us, we see our neighbor. The neighbor is doing poultry. Because we have what I call the sheep syndrome. You know, one enters the road, every other person follows. Whether we are being crushed or not, it doesn't matter because it's too late. Okay, now, if you want to do poultry, and this applies to almost every aspect of agriculture, you have to be honest to yourself to understand that you need stamina. What it means is, if I make an investment, if I have only 50,000 naira, and I know I'm relying on that 50,000 naira, I must choose the investment that returns money on that 50,000 naira, because if I lose that 50,000 naira, I will have to make so much energy, put in so much energy again to be able to get that 50,000 naira back again. That is if I have not been discouraged totally from the business. So we should choose, should we do table meat or should we do egg production? And in choosing, you have to look at gestation. That is, how long does it take to go from that little bird to the table meat? Or how long does it take me to get to my eggs? And if I get to my eggs, let's not be driven by bloated ambition and greed. You know, I want to do everything. The same way we want to do everything is the way we lose everything. So, let's take the case of egg, for instance. Your interest is you want out of your poultry to get eggs that you sell in the marketplace. Now, if your chicken is laying and is laying at below 80%, you are operating at a loss. What does that mean? To lay below 80%. If I have 100 birds, 80 of them must lay eggs in one day. If 80 of them, if 79 lay eggs, it's already a loss business. Do you know what affects animals like you from feeding? Because you know that mother chicken has to eat to be able to lay, and has to have certain conditions to also be able to lay, just like all of us, living things. Most of us, our feeding goes down when the temperature is high. When it's too hot, we don't want to eat. The body shuts down to a certain distance and doesn't want to take in more food. It's the same thing with the birds. So you've got to do something against that heat. If you want 80 out of 100 birds to lay every day so that you say, it's my break-even point, it is at that point that my business begins to make sense. And it starts with what I talked about, positioning your building. When you position and you get in air, more air, cross-ventilation into that particular distance, you have a chance that the temperature will drop within that this thing. And your birds will have less heat. Do some little things if you're doing poultry. If you decide, if that's what you can afford, and you do buildings with zinc, okay, which we all know they are not very healthy for heat, please, you can do something as simple as set up stands, simple stands, using bamboo, okay, and put over that zinc palm leaves. You're doing two things. You're creating a buffer, what you call in science a buffer, a space that absorbs the heat, okay? At the same time, you are using leaves which naturally absorbs part of that heat and doesn't let all the heat to land on the zinc. You're reducing the temperature. Your birds will feed more, they will live more, and they will lay more eggs. They will lay up to 80 of them could lay in a day. If you have 50 birds, it means that 40 of them could lay in a day. Above that, you are operating at a profit. If 85 of your birds are laying, then you already have 5 birds giving you profit. That's what it means. 5 of them is a part of your profit. What I'm telling you applies to if you are doing cattle. You know, miserably in Nigeria, the average cow in Nigeria, the output, what it gives you, the milking cow, okay, not the meat one. The milking cow gives you 2 liters a day. If you have some very good functioning farms, they are getting 5 liters a day. Now, top of the range, Israel and the Netherlands get 42 liters from a cow in a day. 2 liters. Top of the range. Top of the range. Come back to Africa. Kenya is getting 25 liters a day. Kenya is getting 2.5. We are getting 2 liters. 1, 2. Can you imagine if you were to venture into agriculture and your cows are doing 5? You're better than competition immediately. That's the relative thing I'm talking about. It's not about, since they are doing 25 in Kenya, I have to do 25 too. If you're lucky, yes, you do 25, but most likely, nature doesn't reward us that way. You don't start on day 1 and start making what Kenya is making after so many years. But you see here, if you make 4 liters, it's 100% on status quo. If we are doing 2 and your own cows are making 4, you're at 100% compared to competition. You will outcompete everybody in the market. That's what it means. Break it down. If you're making 5, you're making 10. You're on your best, easiest path to becoming a millionaire. In the Federal Republic of because remember that money is relative and is situated in every society. So 10 liters as opposed to the 2-liter output in Nigeria today puts you on the path to becoming a millionaire. That is to prosperity. That is what I mean. How does your cow do 4 liters, 5 liters, 6 liters, 10 liters? Part of it is what I've already told you. These animals don't feed when there is intensive heat. And you need their feeding. You need them to feed a particular feed to be able to produce this volume of milk. And I'm talking about the same cattle we have locally. I'm not talking about super hybrids, bringing them in, the Holsteins and the rest of them. I'm still talking about these our Fulani cows that walk 5,000 kilometers on foot. I'm going to say something about that, okay? You see here, the cow, if you've practiced in countries and see what they do and how they do it, it has to influence you. Because there's no point reinventing the wheel. In some of these countries I'm talking about, before the cow goes to be milked, it is taken into a room where the temperature between what you call ambient, that is outside temperature, okay? There's a 3-degree difference between the temperature outside and inside. It's not necessarily what we call air conditioning. Remember the clay pots that we all drank out when we were growing up? Remember? They were not refrigerated, but the water was fresh. So this is what I'm talking about. Reconnect. We lost that pot, and we're having problems today. We lost the pot because we said that what am I doing with a clay pot? Why should I have a clay pot in my house when I can buy a fridge? Today we suffer the consequences of the fridge because we don't even have the power. And we don't have mechanics to repair the fridge. So, it's compounded problems. Now, the cow again. The cow, all you need to do, if it is your interest, for instance, if you take that same cow that has fed the normal food and put them in a room where you have fan and you have cross ventilation, and there is 2-3 degree difference between the temperature outside and inside, that cow at milking point is going to give you not 2 liters, but 3 or 4 liters. This is the basic science I'm talking about, okay? Walking away from banishing the idea. It's a garden thing. And because it's a garden thing, what's the point? I won't do it. It doesn't give money. Why would it give money? We're doing everything wrongly. Everything we get wrong. Because my mother told me that the reason why she was sending me to school was not to go through the hardship that she is going through with me. So she created a disconnect between me and my reality. And today, I'm floating. So, we're still talking about this same cow, regardless of the feeding now, cool its body down and you get more milk immediately out of the same cow. Yes, please, Pastor. No.
If this is the reality, what is all this madness we're discussing in this country? Are there no technocrats like you, experienced and others, who are feeding government, or is it just because of the political side of it?
Pastor, this is what we call a failed system. That is, you just hit the nail on the head. That's what it takes for a system to fail. When a system fails, it doesn't mean that there are no inherent wisdom within the system. It doesn't. What I'm saying is not rocket science. Okay? It doesn't mean, you have to go to Harvard again or go to Yale to be able to know these things. It takes practice, and many people have practiced. The simple truth is, if I tell you some stories about what happens in the so-called agricultural space, how government, when I was in government, I was an advisor to the Minister of Industry that imported rice processing mills into the country, 36. At XY amount of money, not one is functioning. Not one out of 36 is functioning. They did not bring them to function. They didn't bring them to function. As long as people are in the ivory tower, living comfortably, pretending that that's where they were born, they're not going to make any difference in our lives. The decision will be ours. Do we want to make a difference in our life, or don't we? What I'm trying to do is to reignite in us that we can make that decision for us. You see, when I was a student in Germany, just a very brief one. When I was a student in Germany, one day I came to school and I saw some unusual vehicles on my campus. So I was wondering, I saw vehicles with a flag, which tells me that some statesman has to be around. And I saw some police people decently hiding in one corner or the other. So I asked somebody who was a passerby, I said, what's going on? You know, what's happening here today? I can see all these S-Class Mercedes. And he said, the president of Germany is around. So I said, the president of Germany is around? And everybody's going about their business normally, and nothing is going on here. And the young man looks at me and says, did he come here for me? He said, did he come here for me? He's his own president. I mean, I didn't invite him. So he went by his business. I did not graduate in all the years, and I was in school for about 10 years. I did not meet anybody whose ambition it was that when I finish school, I want to go to politics. Not one. I don't remember any of my colleagues at school that ever imagined that when they finish, they'll go to politics. Go and do what? Everybody will tell you, I want to work for Siemens. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to work for, I mean, what? The people that want to go to work in government they are idealists. There's something they believe in. They want to create change. They want to do something else, you know. But the average young person doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to change anything. He just wants to get a better life for himself. That's the ones I experienced too. I'm not talking about here. Okay? So, now, back again to agriculture. I'll come to an end and then we can have an interactive session. Let me give you another instance where if we work together, if we build synergies, you see, there's a deep-seated distrust with us culturally that makes us break all the value that you find in the economic cycle that will help us get to the promised land. But based on our distrust and our misgivings about life and how life should be and all that, we're not able to do anything. Now, we need synergy. We're always talking about money, which is an issue. It's a given. Look, the fundamental issue in life is that there are limited resources and there are competing needs the world over. It's a fundamental premise. It's not it didn't originate in Africa. There are always limited resources. It's in nature. It is given in nature. There are limited resources and there are competing needs. So we never have enough. Now, if we don't have enough, what do? Sit back and say, oh, you know, but I don't have the money. I can't do anything because there's no money. If we build synergies, and we have to, we don't have a choice. You see, we keep pretending to ourselves that we do have a choice, but we actually don't. What do I mean by synergy? I spoke about the first one. I said, if the church partners with its members, okay, and creates the framework, that framework will not be for nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, why will it be for nothing? Because if it's for nothing, that effort by the church will die very quickly. Once it dies, it's no longer sustainable. And once it's not sustainable, we break the cycle, and there's no extension support person coming to show me again how to build or set up the building. Because I need to take advantage of the wind flow into my place. So, if the church provides a center, okay, a value center, in that center, the church is warehousing resource people that are trained. Okay? Now, these resource people offer their services at a fee. Fair fee. Fair fee to sustain the business and make some profit. Because you pay salary and income out of profit. You don't pay it out of the principal. If you pay it out of the principal, the business is on the surest way to die. So there has to be a profit. Reasonable profit margin that makes the business sustainable. Now, the first one we spoke about was extension. Okay, what the church can do. And, you know, you'll be coming and be saying, let me do this thing. There are different models that can be used. If you don't have money, we can do what you call crop sharing. We didn't invent it. Our parents did it. Somebody will give you land. Take my land. Use my land, farm. When you farm and finish and you bring your whatever you farmed, we agree a formula. I get something for the land I've given you. You keep, but I will never take so much that you will not be able to come back to me again and give me. So we have a process. We have a system running, which starts sustaining itself. Now, you see here, we hear of Israeli agriculture. And we wonder, what is it? People of God. Are we people of devil? What is it that they did? Or what is it that they do that makes this magic? I don't want to go to. I'm using the climate. That's why I talked about Israeli agriculture. Okay? You see here, before we till the ground, we must learn. We must learn before we till the ground that soil test is mandatory. This is the ABC of the Israeli success, of the science of agriculture, of precision in agriculture. Because nature plays games on you. So you better be careful not to allow it to play too many games on you. So the ones you can control it. Before you decide to farm, all you need is let this resource center of the church have a soil laboratory department or testing which is small. It doesn't take anything to acquire the equipments you need, test tube, this and that, to train the people. Pull people from schools who have done chemistry, microbiology, who have this background, whether it's in a polytechnic or whatever. Employ them. We can come and help them get the precision out of it so they understand it properly. They don't give you false negatives. So, why is it important to do something as basic as soil test? Because that determines whether what the effort you're making will succeed or fail. I give you a small instance, very small example. Very small example. You see here, tomato. I had tomato, so I love tomatoes. So let me talk about tomato. You see tomato here as a crop. Tomato is the cash crop of today. It's not palm oil, it's not rubber, it's not cocoa, it's not anything. Why? Please go to the market. If you go to Mile 12 here, or go to the markets that Mile 12 supplies, because Mile 12 is a major anchor market in Lagos. Many other major distribution markets get their produce from Mile 12. But if you go to Mile 12, please, every day, go to Mile 12. Send somebody to Mile 12 to count the number of trucks of tomatoes that are offloaded on daily basis. Daily basis, not every other day, daily basis. You see, the market is not stupid. For the market to distribute that volume, it means that the market has the absorptive capacity. It can deal with that volume. These people are not idiots. If you go to the market, they will teach you how it's done. I will end my this thing with that aspect. Okay? So, tomato. If you farm tomato on a soil that has more iron than required, one of the ways you find out whether a soil has a lot of iron or not is the redness of the soil. Red is always an indication of presence of iron. You see all your knives, the knives that we buy, we keep at home, the knife will start rusting. That knife, the basic metal is iron. It wasn't properly galvanized. They didn't put whatever thin coat they put enough on it. So the iron starts rusting. That iron is the iron. It's the same iron. Some people wash that iron into their food, though, just in case you don't know. You think it's going to poison you. No, it doesn't poison you. Because it's iron. It's only when it washes, like the aluminum, if it's an aluminum coat that you have on the knife, it's when it washes the aluminum with the iron, the mixing of the two metals is what gives you the little combination. But if that knife is rusting alone, you can scrape it into your food and you get iron. And I'm not joking. If you use land that has too much iron in it to farm tomatoes, you will fail. Maybe that land is good for cucumber. That simple, you see, that effort to go that little mile to that center and say, please come and test my soil. And the center says, it will cost you 1,000 naira. Please pay that 1,000 naira. If you don't learn to pay that 1,000 naira, you'll be the Nigerian youth that is always bought at elections for 500 naira. And immediately at the announcement of results, your value is 500 naira. You can go and die with the 500 naira because you will never see that man again. Don't let that continue to be your narrative. Invest wisely means pay that 1,000 naira so that you will know whether you should farm cucumber here or you should farm tomatoes there. If you don't, you'll be running around circles. Your cucumber never gives you what you thought it would give. The tomato never gives you what it will give you. When you're farming tomatoes, farm against the flow of water. Why? Because if tomato farm is flooded for 12 hours, you lose the crops. The crop is that sensitive, but it's a cash crop. It's a cash crop because if you go to the market every day and see the volumes that are offloaded, that's how you define cash crop. It's not what you learn in school. This one is cash crop. The other one, go to the market, you see the cash crops. Okay? So, I just gave you the instance of something like pepper is much more robust as a crop than tomato. What it means is that pepper will survive better than tomatoes under the same conditions. So if you are in a place where the conditions are that bad, please don't do tomatoes, do pepper. That's what we're saying. So, go back to the marketing end. You see, if you don't want, Igbo people, the magical Igbo man, we have to learn something from them. I'm an Igbo man, but I'm not magical. I spent a lot of my time outside there, so I lost the magic that they have. You see here, but as a model, I'm now speaking as a model. And there are many parts of this country that are built on similar models. I'm just using one now as an example. Okay? You see, you will always wonder, why is the average Igbo man a trader? Why is that basic thing that every family, whether they are in Anambra, what you call tutelage, okay? The principle that I take a brother or I take a cousin or I take whosoever, I take them through the trade. The trade is trade. It's not, I'm not talking about trademanship now. I'm not talking about carpentry. I'm talking about his wife, that is going to the market to sell things. Okay? I take them through the market. Now, the reason is that the market end is usually the end with the least hurdles in that value system. If you want to get an entry into that system, try and reconnect to where my mother stopped. If you know that you are so scared of tilling the soil, or you don't like the smell of chicken, but you like their sight as meat on your plate. If this is your reality, then go to where you can get that meat and convert it. You get the poultry, because there are people that are producing. So you can key in there. Many of us would wonder, how do I key in there? I tell you, it's not so difficult. It is not so difficult. I told you about, and you know, it's not just that I told you, you also know Somebody who buys, okay, when the prices are low and is watching, observing the market. That's what the so-called rich educated people, that's what they also do when they invest in share options. Or you are doing currency trading. You're simply looking at market. It's the same thing. It's called commodities trading. The strength of London. The strength of London is commodities trading. Commodities, agro-commodities. You can trade in them. You can start by buying, okay, because there's something else you're doing. We're not telling you now, leave that thing you're doing and jump into agriculture. Don't say, Dr. Mba said. Because he will say, but he preached all the prosperity, and at the end of the day, my agriculture has gone back to basics. If you're smart, if we're smart about it, we do what I call a situation analysis of ourselves, each and every one of us, and know if I'm actually interested in it, what is my strength? How much time do I have? What am I doing right now? And how can I get into that system? One way to get into the system is what I've just said. I did these things by myself. I am still doing them. I'm not teaching you or telling you what I learned in any school. Okay? I'm telling you what I practice. Now, you can buy, depending on where you... Somebody in this church told me a great story yesterday. A great story. I found it because I asked him, I said, what do you find exciting about Lagos? That was my question. And he told me that there's no such thing like Lagos. There's no other town like Lagos. So I told him, look, I have an open mind. I want to understand. What is your magic? What is that thing that you call Lagos? And he told me a story, a brief story. But that brief story, the only part I'm taking out of that story was, he said, my wife noticed in Lagos trading in palm oil. It doesn't have to be palm oil, my dear. It can be anything. What the whole magic is about. Take advantage. Is Lagos market. That market to decide where is the after you in the process. So you have a process. And then you can plug in. Today, people are beginning to make a fortune out of what they call collection centers. Build a transparent system, walk away from trust. Trust is a fundamental in nature. It's given. We must trust whether we like it or not. I mean, there are degrees of trusting now. But it's fundamental. That is what the white man called it. And they find a way to put these things down, and each person signs against it. They have developed a system. And they start testing the system. They are doing incredible things. They are doing things that they are moving numbers that we can't imagine. And in these markets, they have people take money. If you've been a part of ASUS, at a given point in time is right or wrong. That in taking decisions in life, we have to know that every decision comes with consequences. And we must be bold enough to shoulder the consequences of the decisions we make. So we can make the bold move. If we know we can't raise the funds alone, let's build the synergies that can raise some level of funding that can give us an entrance into the market. At the church level, there are so many things, so many funding options that exist today, and they are real. They are not just political. They are real. The church can tap into the Anchor Borrower Scheme of the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's an agricultural lending program. The only thing is that the church will refine its own processes when it comes to anchor borrowing, because anchor borrowing is failing very woefully right now. What it means is that the Central Bank of Nigeria or the obligo banks, that's the banks that offer the guarantee, the warranty, the guarantee now, I guarantee that if anything happens, I'm going to pay. The recoup rate for the Central Bank of Nigeria is below 50% right now. And why? Because of the same failings in our system. They give it to their brothers and their sisters. They give it to friends at percentages. People take whatever they want to take upfront. And people are shopping all over the place from NISA, from wherever, okay, wanting to offer this money so that they can collect their percentages. It still does not negate the basic principle and the reason for which the anchor borrower scheme was set up. Now, we can key into that. All we need to do is what I'm talking about, okay? The anchor is the market platform. The anchor is the processor. I'm trying to break it down. Now, the anchor borrows on behalf of the people that will supply it with the necessary raw materials that it needs to either sell or process. So, it means that if I want to do tomatoes, I can set up a limited liability company if I don't already have one. Special purpose vehicle, that is something that would do that from a business point of view. And that thing I'm doing will be a market, okay? So, I now work with the members of the church, the interested ones. You can work with us, you can work with anybody. There are people out there. So I'm not here to advertise myself. Now, what happens is that the members of the church who are interested will have to go through training. Those of them that really show zeal at that training will be chosen. It's another way of saying write a business plan. But we're not going to write business plan because people will run away immediately. And it's not an academic thing. So people that show zeal and commitment, that they really want this and they see the possibilities and the prospects and they want to take the chance, they are selected to be the first crop of people that will be these people we are borrowing on behalf of. When we borrow, each of them can get up to 5 to 10 million naira. But the anchor has the responsibility to make sure that he sets up their farm properly or their venture properly and mentors properly through the extension I'm talking about. When it mentors properly, offering, guaranteeing the participants in such a program that they will be able to make per cycle, I will explain to you what cycle means, they will be able to make per cycle a minimum of $1,000. So, what is your name, sir? Sorry? Ozumba. It means Ozumba is participating in this program. Okay? And Ozumba has a farm for which he gave land or somebody gave him land. It doesn't matter. Or the system gave him land. Ozumba farms the land, and at the end of the cycle for tomatoes, which in this case is 90 days, Ozumba will be entitled to $1,000. Now, $1,000 right now is, let's call it 500,000 naira in the black market. We're going up and down. Well, let's call it 500,000 naira. If Ozumba makes 500,000 naira in 90 days, which is 3 months, if you divide it, okay, Ozumba is making about over 160,000 naira a month. You see, it's not like we think that agriculture is meant for people who don't want to wear suits, or people who don't want to dress well, or people who don't want to do this or who don't want to do that. Based on this example already, you will ask yourself the question, how many people have that as their takeaway income? I'm not talking about here. I'm talking generally speaking now. How many people in the Federal Republic of Nigeria have that as a takeaway? And we sit and we talk about unemployment, and we talk about underemployment, and we talk about how it's impossible, and how we're not doing this, and how do we raise money to do this and that and that. I've just told you, you can Google them. The International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, IITA, has its headquarters in Ibadan. They have a limited liability company called Incubator Platform. You can Google them and check what I'm telling you. Talk to them directly. You don't need to use me as any medium. Talk to them directly and say, we're interested in doing this. I heard through somebody that something like this is possible. Can we work together? Can we do it? And then you hear from them whether it's possible or it's not possible. So, I would like to end in this note. Why? Because I tried in what I've done to come down to the bottom line. And the bottom line is what stays at the end of the day. Why do I have to do this? Is it worth the while? I tell you from me, standing here on the podium, I can tell you it is more than worth the while. Since I left, I came back to this country. I had a small stint in government from 2007 to 2010. From 2011, I've done nothing else but agriculture. I don't think I look so ugly. I tell you, you too can do it. And if we don't all come together and understand that agriculture is the mother of all foundations, if we don't come to that foundation, we are deceiving ourselves. I'm not saying it has to be the thing that you earn your livelihood forever and ever. But it's a beautiful starting point. We all watch movies about America and the ranches. You forget that a cattle ranch is a place where cattle, predominantly, is a farm for cattle. But we see it from the helicopters, the cowboys that are all over the place, galloping around in the horses, living in the luscious palaces and the rest of it. It is built on the back of cattle. The wine that some of us buy, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, that we buy, they are built on agriculture. They're built on wine farms, wineries, a whole industry. You will be amazed to hear that starch, okay? For every 1 liter of oil that Nigeria or any country takes out from a drilling pocket, that's your drilling oil, you're sucking it out, you have to pump back from an adjacent point a mixture of clay and starch. It's called drilling mud. That starch doesn't come from anything other than from agriculture. Nigeria imports, as we speak, 98% of the whole drilling starch that it uses in its drilling industry. 98. Cassava starch, and they do it as cornstarch. And cassava starch, in this regard, has chemical superior characteristics to the cornstarch. We don't know what to do with our cassava. We don't know what to do with ourselves. I don't know if we know that for every oil, every fuel you buy, there's a 10% ethanol. I don't know if you know. For every oil that is pumped, every petrol that is pumped into your car, there is a 10% ethanol component. It helps the fuel to burn completely. Ethanol comes from sugars. Sugars are cassava, maize, corn, whatever you call it. That's all sounding very complex and complicated. But you see, I don't know if you know that that drug you take and you swallow, the pill you take and swallow, is a block of starch. The tablet we drink is starch. That thing, the reason why we take it sometimes against the prescription of the doctor that you have to eat, and it doesn't kill you immediately, it's because there is food around it called starch. The active ingredients are in that thing called the tablet. The drug is inside there, but what we drink is the starch. For every sweet we take, for every ice cream we take, it's all starches. We don't know what to do with ourselves. There's poverty in the land. There's hunger in the land. Because we want to have hunger in the land. The day we decide to change it, then each and every one of us will look around him, assess themselves properly, and make a first bold step. That is how the so-called big people you hear tomorrow, somebody started the process. Somebody started the process. We're not saying start it so that you will hunger. I've told you on the example of participating in the Anchor program, where you begin to produce correctly, produce at something near the estimated output, how it is possible for you to break the 100,000 naira barrier in terms of income. And that is just the beginning. Thank you very much. Let me take your questions.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me start by saying a big thank you, Doctor. Very insightful presentation. Now, my question is predicated on an experience. Now, why I raised my hand earlier when you were asking who are those who participate is because I mentor a set of young people and encourage them to go into agriculture. And went into cassava production. Unfortunately, by the time the harvest was out, it became a glut. And at the end of the day, because of limited cash flow, to continue that process became, a bit difficult. And then a friend later said, starting from production was actually a wrong step, which I seem to have agreed. Because at the end of the day, like you said, your mom was doing the marketing hand. Your mom was doing the marketing end in spite of her limited education, and she was able to manage the process. So the friend said, for someone who wants to go into agriculture with limited capital, it's always advisable that you start from the marketing end, build up capacity, and then maybe do a retrogressive expansion of going into production. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. I prefer to take the questions immediately one after the other. I won't dwell too long in them because it helps me to address the issue, intensively, rather than just pool and start talking. What do I think? It's neither here nor there. That's the truth. It's always a bit of everything. Now, why do I say so? You see, the system we run is characterized by what you call supply side weakness. What does that mean? It means that we are not producing the right quality of food in the right quantity. Example, in the rainy season, the tomatoes that most of us see can be compared to water, isn't it? They are very watery. The consequence of that, if you're making stews, the watery tomato is usually sour. You see, the level of water you have in the seed increases the acidity, the level of acidity in the plant. Okay? So what it means is that the tomato that has a lot of water is usually more sour than the one that has less water. And it's also very susceptible. What it means is that if you keep it in the sun, within hours it will burst. So many of them have fracture, they break up very quickly. Okay? So if you are a hotel owner or you run a restaurant and you have to prepare stews and you need certain quantity of tomatoes to do, it means that your energy cost will be high. Energy cost here is the cost of your firewood that you're going to use to keep boiling that tomato until it dries up. Okay? The cost is high, and you will have to find a means to sweeten the tomato if you don't want your customers to come complaining that your stew is not sweet today, that is sour. The sweetening aspect of it brings the additive into your food that you don't want to have, but you end up getting. So what I'm saying is, you need both. Look at what happened. What happened is exactly what I'm talking about. If we take agriculture seriously, we will not make investments either in production or in marketing without proper assessment of the situation. If you produce, let me start with the market. I went to a market in Port Harcourt, and I told them that I was producing tomatoes from greenhouses and peppers, that I want to supply them at our first harvest. One of the brokers said to me that, sir, you would have to have serious discussions with us so that we determine the quantity you can give us in relation to the quantity the market can absorb. Otherwise, you have a glut. You don't jump. You see, what I'm saying is just the same thing as the soil test, the water test that needs to be done. The simple idea of somebody tells me wind flow. This is the basic knowledge, okay, technical. There is the other knowledge, market survey. The center I'm talking about has to set up a market survey, okay? You can make so much money out of market survey. Why? Because the Nigerian Commodities and Exchange Commission has no data, and they will buy from you. Because you have data, live data, emanating from the markets. If you do a proper market survey, it will tell you that beyond a particular volume, you will have a glut. The market will not absorb it. Once the market doesn't absorb it, you have a glut because you have overproduction. So the issue here is not production versus marketing, because both of them are legitimate part of the process. And each of them has a weakness. Take advantage of the weakness. That's what it's all about. So if you're doing production of cassava, find out what are the markets around. How much cassava do they absorb? You can do that by going to the market and asking questions. How much trucks of cassava do you get here every day or every other day or weekly or whatever? Do you sell everything? Do they come back to you immediately? It gives you your result on market survey. Based on that, if you wanted before to till 100 hectares of land, you might end up tilling only 20 and planting cassava in it. Do I make sense? So it's not about because the marketer, at the marketing end, if you and I build a partnership and we're doing the right tomatoes, okay, what happens if I'm producing and I'm selling to you in a partnership, okay, two of us immediately develop an advantage in the marketplace. Because when the other tomato is coming full of water, you and I are bringing tomatoes that are fresher, fleshier, and drier. So we take advantage of a market niche also in our production in terms of what we're producing. So it's both of them go together, but agriculture requires to have thorough background work or background check before we take a leap. If we don't do it, we're going to get into the same problem.
Dr. Linus, thank you so much. I knew that this was going to be heavy. Two things. Can I request that for a few people here, during the break time, you spend 10 minutes, especially those who are practitioners, That's number one. Number two, certainly one of the reasons why we decided we needed to have this, because it's been an ongoing discussion, is that we intend to do something. So we'll need some, maybe not openly, on a one-on-one basis. We'd like to hear whether you have, what model you would encourage as a group. We should think about the cooperative dimension, or setting up just directly, getting people and putting some supervision and any other kind of option, and at what part of the value chain as an organization we should come in. But I wanted to request specifically for the first one so that we can do that, because I do think we have fewer and fewer minutes left to be able to accommodate this session. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, that's fine. I'd very much love to.
Praise the Lord. And they've answered one of my questions. But the other one, some time ago, I was into poultry. This layer of a thing. And boar came and always kill my fowl and swallow the eggs. Boar. Snake. Yeah. So I ran away from the business and I went into buying and selling during December. And I started again now. The same boar started again. I don't even know the thing to use to overcome that boar. That is what I want to ask. Whether is there anything? Praise the Lord.
I can just give you a brief answer to that, okay? Maybe we can also engage further afterwards if you're still interested in continuing. But there are so many solutions usually. It's a part of the agricultural planning when you're doing something. If you're doing poultry, depending on where you are, you always have to think about snakes, okay? And that snakes might come, or other vectors that can prey on whatever you're doing, okay? And then begin to, there are things like snake traps and the rest of it, The only thing is that we have to think about it properly and see in your own particular case, what could the solution be? But there are solutions. I went to a farm, just briefly, in Mexico, okay, where elephants, and this works for Nigeria. I'll just tell you the connect. It was a banana plantation, okay, and this banana, I worked with them, okay, and it's a massive, if you can imagine, this farm exports 60-40 foot containers of banana every week to Europe from Mexico. 60-40 foot containers of banana every week to Mexico. They're multimillionaires, in dollars. And they had this issue of elephants, okay, coming into the banana because they love bananas. Who doesn't like good things? But you know what they did? They decided, after they thought about it, common sense, they decided, you know what? We've been thinking about how do we build a fence around this farm. Okay? And the farm is massive. And it's going to cost us a lot of money. So they decided to dig trenches round the farm, which needed an excavator, a small hand excavator. The cost was so low. You know what they did again? They did it and they grassed it. So they just put a layer of humus over that whole thing, okay, and did a carpet grass, Bahamas, across it to prevent erosion. Any elephant that goes there gets trapped. Solution to cattle ranching. And herdsmen. The mammal, the four-legged deer animal, if he falls into a trench, can't come out. He can't come out. He simply cannot come out. By the time two fall into trenches, it becomes a no-go. I don't need to tell anybody again not to build, the people will not go there because you'll be losing your animal and nobody's killing them. They fell into a trench. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. So there's a solution. There's always a solution.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Linus, you've done us so good. My question actually is just to foundate what Senior Pastor said in terms of, I was thinking a situation whereby if the church decides through the business arm to go into an aspect of farming whether you can be there as a consultant. Maybe that can be discussed later. But the question I want to ask is wind flow necessary when it comes to snail farming?
No. No, it's not. It's not as necessary as it is with poultry. The reason is that any animal that you rear, like within a, you rear like mass production, they are bound to be very susceptible to illnesses and weaknesses. You see, if you have a 30-day span or 90-day span, and you're stuffing something, you're stuffing an animal, okay, because you want it to achieve a particular weight, you should know immediately with common sense that as you do that, that animal is no longer naturally as strong and resilient as it should be. So it is very susceptible to heat, it's very susceptible to disease, okay? So if you see these poultries that are working excellently, biosecurity is so central because of the diseases. One can wipe off the whole thing. So, you have the whole idea of spraying. But back again to your question. You see, as long as something is a living thing, air is important for it, particularly in the case of snail. Humidity is also very important, but not humid enough to cook it, to cook the snail. The snail needs a moist environment. Moisture is the word. It needs a moist environment. So you have to keep moistening it, because in science, there are two things that happen. Humidity and temperature are two counter-opposed variables. If the heat is high, humidity is low. If humidity is low or humidity is high, heat is low. So you've got to play with both of them. One way to drop temperature is to increase humidity, which is when you spray or sprinkle water there and it produces this moisture, immediately you see the temperature dropping. Okay, if you put a thermometer there, you're going to see it. So it's a moist environment you need, but you have to be mindful of excessive heat. If you're doing snail farming, you will notice that they hide when the temperature is very hot. And in the evening, they start coming out. They start coming out. So you can do things like banana leaves cover, but moist it. Moist the banana leaf before you put it on them. Okay? And do another during the day. Do banana leaf covers, okay, over that particular distance. Don't allow the place to be flooded, because it will drown them. You can use, again, banana leaves. If you're looking for low-cost measures, you can use banana leaves to do the roofing of the place. Why? Remember that banana leaves, when it rains, it drips off the body. The leaf doesn't wet. That's what they call nano. It's the nanotechnology. The banana leaf has nanoparticles, which does not allow the skin to be wet. So it's not as bad as with poultry, that's the answer, but you need wind flow. If you don't need wind flow, you cook your snails. You come and then you have so much meat to eat. You don't want to have that situation.
Thank you, sir. I will be taking just three more questions. We have one here. Just one more person, please. Any other question? Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. My question is this. Before planting a crop, what are the things to add to the soil? And what is the impact of agriculture on a climate change?
On climate change? If I start with that, this is a very controversial topic. Science is divided on it, but mainstream science says that everything, if you assume that the universe is one unit, okay, everything affects everything, okay. Agriculture done properly, all right, is very beautiful for climate change, done properly. Remember, in climate change, you're talking about the carbon dioxide or the carbon monoxide level in the atmosphere. Okay? And exactly that is what your plant needs to produce the beautiful mango tree or mango fruit that you enjoy or papaya that you love, for its photosynthesis. It needs the carbon dioxide. And when it does that, it releases back oxygen to you, which is what you need. We need more oxygen. If you live in a place where there are trees around, you feel it every day now. You feel what the magic the tree is doing for you every day. Okay? So that's on the climate, on the climate change, like I said, it's a very long discussion. There are scientists that think it doesn't, but the science, mainstream science today, says there's a connect. Everything is interconnected. Okay? And common sense tells me also that everything has to be interconnected. There's an action and a reaction. If I do something negatively, it triggers a reaction. The other question, just give me this thing. The other question was on soil. Okay. Soil is what do you add to soil? Answer, first of all, is nothing. Okay? It goes back to the same answer I gave before. Why do I say nothing? We need to know. It's important you know what your soil has to know what to give to your soil. But one thing you should please not do is if you want to clear your field, the place you want to farm, try and do it the traditional way that it was done before. The traditional way they did before was that they cut the grass. They did not weed. They didn't weed. Take a hoe, go to the soil, and you're taking up, okay? They cut, and then when they took it up, they covered the same grass with soil. It's called mulching, okay? What you do in that process is that you're not robbing the soil of its nutrients. And you don't have more than 1.5 centimeter of soil that is relevant for you. Once you destroy that, you don't need to do agriculture. If you take that topsoil away, go and do another business. Don't do agriculture. You're not going to get any output. I'm telling you. It will be miserable. And I don't want, after you encountering me, coming back and saying, I tried agriculture and it was miserable, so I'm not trying it again. I would like you to try it again. Okay? Let me also, you didn't ask me the question, and I skipped it. You see, when you water crops, okay, this is one of the things we use to kill our plants. We water at the wrong times, okay? Now, when is the right time to water becomes the question. If you wake up in the morning, and you look at the leaves of your plant, and they have pores of water on the skin, please don't water. It means the plant is transpiring, it is suffocating. The humidity, relative humidity in the morning, most in the south of the country, whether it's south, east, southwest, is about 100%. What it means is that when it is so humid, the plant is suffering just like a living thing. And the only mechanism it has to free itself of this suffer is to start sweating. Those water you see on its pores is the plant trying to sweat. And you know that's what sweating does for you. It helps you to breathe. It helps you cool your body and breathe again. If you give the plant water then, the plant will not absorb 1% of the water because it's saturated from the moisture. Around 10 in the morning, 9, 10, the humidity level drops to about 70, 60%. That is the time to water. Otherwise, you just be wasting your water and at the end you stop agriculture.
Praise God. Thank you, sir. Before I go to my question, I just want to help him out what I actually did. I have a poultry farm, and Python comes to my farm. And sometimes they come in two with their brothers and sisters. They come together. And I have people that kill them too. But thank God it doesn't affect anyone. One of the things that invite Python to your farm back from the bed is swarming area. If your area, there's a swarm in that place, they live there. So the birds, they come in because they live in that area. Number two, bushy areas. So what I did in my own area, number one, why the python was entering into my bed, one python will swallow 5 birds. So when they enter into my farm, I discovered that the nets that we buy nowadays are not too good. So I had to go and buy the galvanized one, which was more expensive. And I've netted my farm in the space of 1.5 years. I've netted it like 3 times. So I had to go for the most expensive one to get the right thing done. That will stay for a long time. So now I close up all holes. They can't enter again. Then what I did to the vicinity, I cleared down the vicinity. I started planting all the vicinity. They don't like open places. So because of that now, this rain that fell, this rainy season, I really do not have that. What I see is that they'll say they saw the trace. Do you understand? But they couldn't come close because I've already attacked that. They talked about planting some plants to chase out snakes and all that. I didn't just bother that. What I just did is that I make sure everywhere is clean. I can see the floor I walk in. That's one. Then number two, my question now is this based on the what's going on with the feed. Feed is going up so much. I saw in the that farmers are lamenting that the qualities of feed is dropping down. I was making actually like 200 crates of eggs per day, and because of the feed, I had to, the production dropped to like 180. So 20 crates has come down, you know, and when I actually thought of me going to self-milling, excuse me, when I actually thought of going to self-milling, I was discouraged for going to self-milling, that I should still go on and be buying their feed. So what I do now, I buy so much of multivitamin to meet up. It's really a problem. What do you think about it, please? Throw more light on it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you've said, you've given the answers to many of the issues at the same time. Multivitamins is always a problem. Remember, the thing is a living thing, okay? And the problem is what you end up consuming. You know, what the buyer, you're finding a solution which is viable. I know that there are many people, because I'm involved in poultry farms, I know there are many people who do such too, okay? But the problem I personally have as a practitioner with chemicals like multivitamins, okay, is that it is usually passed on to people. It's called residue, okay? They're called phytosanitary residue that you have in plants. In Europe, those things will not qualify to be sold. It won't even be sold in the market. Okay, there's a level you pass, you know, there's a minimal level which is tolerable in humans, okay, which will not become a problem to the kidney or to the liver if it passes that tolerance. That production doesn't come to the market. But you know, here, we're grappling with a couple of issues. So we do things that invariably come to hunt us back. So, you know, one gain is another loss, potentially. We don't know whether it will really be a loss. The cycle of poultry, of the feed in poultry, is unfortunate right now because we all know where the problem is coming from, okay? And again, very unfortunately, this whole story we have in our country about insecurity, okay, is not doing any good to this whole thing because the corn farmers who cannot go to farm, okay, affects us directly or indirectly. Government is not embracing the matter or taking on the matter wholeheartedly and giving a solution to solve the impasse you're talking about now. So they give allocations to the association, and the association is supposed to distribute to its members. So for now, the best way always is join the association, Okay, first of all, you know, also in the case of Nigeria, I mean, we've had Dora Akunyili, whether I like her, to her blessed memory, whether I like her or I don't like her. It was one of the things that I know for a fact that she was fighting against. The whole idea of substandardization in our produce and the impact it has on society. Okay? You know, I can tell you, I can read a story to you in the large-scale agriculture I do. You know, the greenhouses I do, my fertilizers are soluble. They are not the normal fertilizer. And I buy fertilizer from here, and I use it, I don't get my output. And then I do an analysis, I find out that the fertilizer doesn't have what it has. It should have. So I resort to now fighting a battle to bring in fertilizer through Dubai. Because Nigeria says it's an explosive, you know. So all I can say is try and keep finding a solution that works, that does not destroy your business, but at the same time also doesn't create so much side effect. Okay, so find a midway. If, let's say, you were having a profit margin of 28% before, just a number, okay, find a midway to live with a profit of 25%. So your business keeps thriving, and the side effect you're creating is also not that much. Okay? If you sustain it, all these things are cyclical. That is, they are happening in cycles. The controversy you have, or the problem, or the impasse you have around feed, they're going to be solved. Because they will be solved, because they must be solved. Do you understand? It's not just a political issue. It has to be done, because if it's not done, it affects everybody. It affects the larger society, including, or particularly from those who are in government. It will affect everybody. And they are more scared, because many of them are elderly. You know, I'm elderly too, you know, but...
Okay, praise God. So what you're invariably saying is that it's better for me to go into self-milling, because now when I started this farm, I'm going to give a figure now. We're buying feed at the rate every month at 3.5 million. So now that same feed costs 7-point-something million now.
Yes.
Yes, now. It's even going to 8 million because it just increased again. So now the prices are going up. Do you understand? The quality are dropping. And what you said also applied to the plants, because I actually did cucumber. If I tell you the chemicals we use for meat, you won't believe it. Even tomatoes you eat, if you know the chemicals that goes into it, I say, this one is so glossy, this one is so nice, so big, so much chemicals. How can we do it? Because if you, for instance, now you can actually get those, okay, you actually did, what do they call it now? You examine the, yes. Not the soil, you examine the fertilizers, and you discover that a lot of things that they said is there is not there. And you are going the other way, do you understand, to go and get it now. What about we that were not exposed to that way, and we are seeing this way? They say, oh, I won't call names of companies that actually do that. Oh, come and buy it, come and do this. So meaning that what it is that before we get to the age of 50, we'll be suffering from one condition or the other. Because based on the chemicals, we are pouring so much. If you eat one cucumber, just know that the chemical they use, or catfish, or I don't know, the chemicals are so high. Praise God.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. Maybe we can engage on a one-on-one later. I can only summarize by telling you that when you want to produce, if you want to meal yourself, you know, continue with what you're doing. Always work with numbers. Okay, because that is what determines whether you'll be able to sustain what you're doing or you won't sustain it. Work with numbers and see the discrepancy between your own self-production and buying the other one and supplementing. Okay? If the balance doesn't over-tilt in one direction, then it's an option. And when you start doing that option, remember that it's important that you know that the feed you're producing, you have to find a way to make it last longer, or you produce at a shorter pace, okay, which again increases your costs, all right? What needs to happen, and what I want, and what I would want to leave here believe in is that there will be a solution in this larger society here that I find here, okay, that finds a way to tap into these niches. Because the problem you're outlining can be dealt with from an institutional point of view. But as an individual, I am like an institution. These things I work with, I'm able to go and talk to the minister and get what I want because I am like as an institution. Now, if we go as an institution here, you will have the same reach. So it's about seeing how this works so that you can use what you cannot achieve as you can achieve it through the organization, okay? And the organization can build the pressure or use that channel, whatever, to assess those things that you're having difficulties with. This is part of what my far-reaching dream is, what I would want to achieve. Because that's the only way to upscale the small holding is to create a system around it, okay? That system is what becomes the institution. That institution, it becomes a part of the institution, and that institution can help it, and it can help the institution as well. That's the way I see it. A singular effort normally are short-lived. And before you know what's happening, you start getting discouraged. And there's no need because the numbers you're talking are not bad. Thank you. I don't know if...
Thank you very much, sir. Let's put our hands together once again for Dr. Mba. Thank you very much, sir.
So thank you for having me. And thank you, Pastor, for discovering me.
Please, before we go for lunch, please, someone left his car keys in the restroom. Please, if it's you, please, male restroom, please. If you are the one, please just get to the back of the hall and you see the chief usher there, please. Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. All right, we'll be back here for the evening session by 6 p.m. Please time catch some rest and have your lunch, catch some rest, and let's come back here refreshed. God bless you. Can we rise up as well? Let's share the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit rest and abide with us now and forevermore. Amen. God bless you. See you at 6 o'clock.
To Isaiah chapter 42 as you remain standing. What a joy to be in God's house. Thank you, praise ambassadors. Always a blessing. Always a blessing. Isaiah chapter 42. As a nation, we are celebrating our 61st independence. Connected by covenant to a force that guarantees blessing, and that is why whether the devil likes it or not, your generation shall be blessed.
There's something unique inside of you, and wherever you go, just know that God did not create a nonsense in you.
The will of God cannot take you where the grace of God cannot sustain you.
this season that we have entered, as we prepare for what is about to come, there are graces, there are anointings that God will be releasing into the earth again. I'm talking of radical tonal anointings.
You do not lie, you do not fail. What is hard for you to
when you see me dance, I dance like a winner man. When you see me dance, I dance like a winner man. Oh, when you see me dance, I dance like
This is not your first IFOV. No. You've been a member of this great commission for how long now, sir?
Actually, like from 2008.
2008, that's about 11 years.
11 years, yeah.
So you've actually been here from the very inception of IFOV.
Exactly.
So what can you say about IFOV from inception to date?
I think, number one, the first thing is that the IFOV is always getting better. Year by year, it's always getting better. Number two is that, coming here and just, meeting with, all Word Assembly members, our brothers and sisters from everywhere, it's something that is good for us. It's something that has inspired us. And it's something we look forward to every year.
When you talk about by my spirit, like you know that the Bible says in Zechariah 4, it's not by power, it's not by might, but by my spirit. Everything we are doing in the kingdom should be by the leading of the Holy Spirit. Whatever experience we want to have, when we align with the Spirit of God, it's going to lead us. And like the Bible says in the book of John, chapter 8, that he that walks after me will not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. There's no way we are going to walk after him if we don't relate with the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is really the power behind the kingdom and the believer's life. And that's what I expect that everybody will take away from it, so that by next time when we come, there will be wonderful testimonies about the experience the Holy Spirit is going to be giving us in the next 1 year.
Thank you so very much, sir. It's been wonderful having you, and I hope to see you again next year, sir.
Special grace of God, you guys has no problem.
Thank you very much, sir. Do have your one. So what are you expecting?
Well, for me, I know all my expectations will be met, because I've always had this encounter whenever I come into Word Assemblies. Or better still, since I joined Word Assembly, it has been from glory to glory. So I know that which I'm going to encounter, it's definitely what I can say. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither has it come into the heart of any man. So it's not something that can be explained. It's something that can only be experienced. It's not something that can be taught. It can only be caught. So I know I'm really in for a great time.
Okay, that's good. That's wonderful. Host us excellently. Good stuff. Good stuff. Is this your very first IFOV?
No, not at all. I was here last year, the year before last 2 years,
Okay, so this should be like your 5th edition, right? Okay, so what have you noticed over the years of all the other programs?
Basically, I believe that the intensity of the speakers, of the word of the speakers, have grown exponentially. Like the blessing has just continued growing and growing and growing and growing. If there was a gauge we could use to measure it, I'm telling you, we would through the roof. I'm telling you.
Exactly. Same, just like I said earlier, it just keeps getting bigger and better and more explosive.